Welcome back to College Football Fanatic, and the national championship is just around the corner. Both teams, Ohio State and Notre Dame, have earned their way here. Ohio State beat the Big Ten champ in the SEC runner-up. Notre Dame beat the SEC champ in the Big Ten runner-up. The Buckeyes are probably the most talented team in the country. Notre Dame is very, very well coached. And both teams needed to go on a 3-game run in order to get in this position. I want to start with the Notre Dame offense and the Ohio State defense. Riley Leonard is going to have to make a couple throws in this game, just like he did against Penn State. He's going to have to do it again here. If we look at situational passing grades, and these are given out per PFF, when Riley Leonard is kept clean, he has an 86.3 passing grade that's tied for 37th in the country. When he's under pressure, that number dips a little bit. That grade is 36.2 under pressure, 125th in the country. When he's blitzed, he has an 81 passing grade that's 16th in the country, and when he's not blitzed, he has a 63.7 pass grade that's 115th in the country. Now the question is Ohio State going to blitz? Not really. The Buckeyes don't blitz that often. They only blitz 32% of the time, which is the 86th highest rate in the country, but they don't have to blitz. Their defensive line has been so good in these playoffs. The edge rushers, the 5-star, 4-year guys, JT and Jack Sawyer, they've been in the program forever. They're finally peaking together at the same time. They have 10 sacks combined, so they're getting home, which allows Ohio State, that safety-driven defense, Caleb Downs, Lathan Ransom, these guys can sit back in the middle of the field or almost a little prevent, take away the big plays, and allow their defensive line to get home and get pressure. Another piece here that we have to look at, Notre Dame's offensive line is 82nd in the country in pass blocking. They have some injuries. Both teams have injuries in the offensive line. Obviously, we know that Notre Dame's bread and butter is running the football. They're going to want to establish the run game. Jeremiah Love, very good back, has the big playability. We've seen that in these playoffs. Riley Leonard has the dual threat element. He can move the sticks with his legs. So Notre Dame wants to control the game on the ground. That's not breaking news to anyone. If you're a college football fan, you know that's what Notre Dame wants to do. Ohio State's rushing defense comes in at a 95.1 grade, and per PFF, that's the highest by any FBS team in run defense since Ohio State did that in 2019. So this Ohio State defense is flying around the football. They are very good at shutting down their opponent's run game. If we look at what Ohio State's rush defense has done in this college football playoff. In the first round against Tennessee, they gave up 152 rushing yards, 3.9 yards per carry. Nico Iamaleava, got to give him credit. He found something there running the football with the quarterback run. But also Tennessee, I think they kind of got caught in the no man's land where they got down early. The point is they weren't down enough to where they had to throw the ball to get back in it like Oregon had to do against Ohio State, being down 34-0. Oregon finished the Rose Bowl with negative 23 yards rushing. Obviously, that also accounts for sacks. Ohio State had 8 sacks in that game. Everybody was getting home. But when you're Oregon and you're down 34-0, you have to throw your way back in it. So this Ohio State defense is very much benefiting from these fast starts that the Ohio State offense has been able to muster together to start these games. It allows the defense to key in collectively as a team. Ohio State offense and defense, they're forcing their opponents to be one-dimensional in a sense, and the perfect example of that was against Oregon. Texas in the Cotton Bowl, they only had 58 rushing yards, averaging 2 yards per carry. We talked about the edge tandem, JT and Jack Sawyer. They've been very good against the run historically. Now they're getting home against the quarterback. These are very good players. Their linebackers are flying around the football. Sonny Styles, Cody Simon. Cody Simon's playing like an all-American type linebacker right now. He's playing very good football. And then again, this is a safety-driven defense for Ohio State. So you have Caleb Downs, the best safety in the country, Lathan Ransom, who's very underrated as a safety. As good as JT, Jack Sawyer, and the rest of this Ohio State defense is, Lathan Ransom and Caleb Downs might be the best rush defenders that this Ohio State team has, and that's just a tip of a cap to how good they are coming down into the box, filling gaps, and making these hits. I do want to talk about Jeremiah Love for a little bit. Very good player for Notre Dame. He's shown us that he can grind out a touchdown run. We saw that against Penn State. He's also shown us the big playability. He had that 98-yard touchdown run in the first round against Indiana, and I do want to stop there for a second. And I don't like it when people say, well, if you remove this play or if you don't account for this, then this happens. I am going to do it here, but I'm going to do it for both teams. We're starting here for Notre Dame and Jeremiah Love. If you take away that 98-yard touchdown run that Jeremiah Love had in the first quarter against Indiana, Notre Dame's running backs are averaging just 3.3 yards per carry in these playoffs. We know that they want to establish the run game. This Ohio State defense, we just talked about it, very good in general, but also has shown the ability to shut down the run game for their opponents. Could be a little bit of trouble for Notre Dame if they can't get anything going in the air. The pass game has to be clicking just good enough to keep Ohio State at home. If Ohio State's keying in on the run game, if Ohio State's offense jumped out to a big lead and it's forcing Notre Dame to throw the football, this game could be wrapped up before it even gets going. Now we're going to go on the flip side of this. Ohio State's offense against Notre Dame's defense. There's been a lot of discussion this week about Notre Dame's man coverage that they run. They're the best in the country at it. We get that. It sounds like that's probably going to be the plan going into this game. Not that we're going to know what that is, but if you're the best in the country at your thing or doing something, you're probably going to stick with it. However, this Notre Dame defense hasn't gone up against an offense like this that Ohio State has. Jeremiah Smith, best receiver in the country. Also, Will Howard, he deserves his flowers here. He ranks as the second best quarterback in the country against man coverage, according to PFF. These teams have played before. They've played each of the last 2 seasons. You look at the game last year, Notre Dame took away Marvin Harrison Jr. He only had like 3 catches for 30-ish yards or something like that. There's already been the blueprint is laid out on how to stop Jeremiah Smith. Texas just did that. Jeremiah Smith had 0 impact on the Cotton Bowl. Notre Dame obviously has the personnel to do it. They did it against Marvin last year. They can do it against Jeremiah Smith this year. But that just means it's going to be a big day for the rest of Ohio State's weapons. Carnell Tate and Emeka Egbuka, very, very good 5-star receivers on the outside, and they're ready to step up and have big games. Carnell Tate had a big game against Texas. And as good as Jeremiah Smith has been in these playoffs for Ohio State, and after the first 2 playoff games, you would say that he's hands down their best offensive player. At this point, TreVeyon Henderson is probably Ohio State's most important offensive weapon, if that makes sense. And we just got to talk about what he's been doing in these 3 playoff games. He is on a heater right now. In these 3 playoff games, TreVeyon Henderson is averaging 9 yards a rush and averaging 18 yards a reception. Now, to be fair, we took away that 98-yard touchdown run that Jeremiah Love had, and then we said, okay, let's look at the average and how that looks when you take away the outlier. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to be fair. Let's take away the 75-yard screen pass that TreVeyon Henderson had to end the first half in the Texas game. You take that out, Trey is still averaging 10 yards a catch. This guy is averaging 10 yards every time he touches the football, regardless of whether it's a rush or a reception. And it just shows that he has the big play ability. Right now, at this exact moment, he's their most important offensive weapon, especially considering how Notre Dame is going to probably try to find a way, and probably will find a way, to take away Jeremiah Smith. TreVeyon Henderson is their most important player on offense. He has to have minimum 12 touches in this game. Ohio State fans, I mean, we've known that Trey has had the big playability. We've seen this from the very first game when he was a true freshman, catching a screen pass, taking it to the house for a touchdown in the 2021 season in the opener against Minnesota. He's had this big playability, the breakaway speed. What he's done now is he's developed himself into a 3rd down back. He's very good in pass pro. He can also catch the ball to the backfield, like we said. He has the big playability, whether he's catching or running. But most importantly, he's healthy. This is a guy that's been banged up each year, basically, throughout his Ohio State career, other than this year. And a lot of that has to do with him splitting reps with his running mate, Quinshon Judkins. Quinn hasn't had, statistically, the year that you probably want him to have. He's damn near a 1,000-yard rusher. He has over 10 rushing touchdowns, so Quinn's been good. And it looks like Quinn's seen the field a little bit better these last few playoff games. But what this has done, pairing Quinshon Judkins with TreVeyon Henderson, is this has allowed Trey to remain healthy and fresh for this deep playoff run, and you're seeing that benefit Ohio State greatly right now. A few smaller things here. I think the special teams edge goes to Notre Dame. I understand that they've had issues with their field goal kicking. Ohio State's also had issues with their field goal kicking. It seems like Jeter, Notre Dame's field goal kicker, is healthy now, and maybe the health was part of the reason why that they were missing field goal kicks to start the year. I think what Marcus Freeman has done, gaining an edge on special teams, and it's, again, we're going back to that moment against Georgia where they subbed the entire punt team off, brought the offense back on. He's finding an edge as a coach. Ohio State special teams have been very up and down this year. The biggest knock on it is it's inconsistent or it's just bad. In the playoffs, it's been fine, which is good. It's not necessarily a weapon for them right now, but it's not a complete failure, which it's been at times. I think Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman are going to have some weird wrinkles and things lined up on special teams, so we'll keep an eye on that. But if you look at this big picture, this is full circle for both teams. Ohio State's returning to Atlanta, returning to the Peach Bowl. The scene of the crime when they lost that game to Georgia on that heartbreaking, not even close, missed field goal in the CFP semifinal. They make that kick, they beat Georgia, they would beat TCU and have a national championship. Heartbreaking loss as an Ohio State fan. They now have a chance to avenge that loss. Marcus Freeman, Ohio State grad, I think people know this by now, went to Ohio State, played for Ohio State, was a good linebacker. He was also on those back-to-back 06-07 national championship team losses that Ohio State had, losing to LSU in Florida. And it's a little bit of a full circle moment for Jim Knowles, Ohio State's defensive coordinator. When you think back to his very first game at Ohio State, it was the 2022 home opener against Notre Dame. In that very first play, they brought a corner blitz. The corner didn't get home. 50-yard pass play, whatever it was for Notre Dame, and they just went down the field in the very first play of the season for both teams. And I think they got a field goal out of that drive. The defense has come a long way in just a few years since that 2022 defense. I really don't know what to say about a final score. It's hard to pick a score. It's hard to say how the game is going to go. The team is going to be ready. Is Ohio State going to be a little bit tight? Probably. I'm expecting that. We've seen them be tight this year. Now, whether they come in tight and start tight, I don't know if they're going to do that because they've scored on all three of their offensive drives to start these three playoff games. But they might tighten up in the third quarter or fourth quarter if it feels like the game is getting away from them. That is part of the reason why the Texas win was so important for this team, because they steamrolled their first two opponents. The pressure was really off in the second half for the most part. In this game, the pressure was at all-time high because Texas was just knocking on the door, trying to tie that thing up, first and goal from the 1-yard line. So if this coaching staff isn't tight, if this team isn't tight, I think Ohio State is going to be fine, and I don't know if they're going to run away with it because Notre Dame is a very good team, very well coached. Xavier Watts is an absolute dude for them defensively. They have NFL guys all over that roster, and Marcus Freeman has done a hell of a job with his program. I think Notre Dame is probably going to give Ohio State's offense looks to where Ohio State says, oh, we have numbers in the run game. Maybe they only have 5-6 guys in the box. We should be able to run the football. Michigan kind of did this where it's like, based off of the look that we had, we're going to run the ball. However, the weakness of this Ohio State offense is that interior offensive line. Ever since they lost their center, the best center in the country, Seth McLaughlin, it hasn't been the same. Ohio State cannot fall for the bait that Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman are going to set for them when Ohio State's on offense and Notre Dame's on defense. They're going to want Ohio State to get rid of the pass game, go conservative, run the ball, and we've seen Michigan do this, Nebraska in a sense, where Ohio State, it looks like they've gone timid with the play calling. I think it's because they're looking at what the defense is giving them, and they're going, these are the numbers for us to run the football and run it effectively. We should be able to run the football, but they can't. That's the weakness of this Ohio State offense. So Ryan Day and Chip Kelly, they can't fall for the bait. You have to continue to throw the ball on first down. They got away from that a little bit against Texas. They were very good about doing that against Tennessee and Oregon. I understand the Texas game, I think they had 4 drives, maybe in the first half where it was 2nd and 20. Ohio State's penalties just killed them over and over. So that played part of it, but it felt a little timid at times when you think back to the play calling against Texas. Don't get timid. Throw the ball on first down. You're not going to abandon the run game, but Ohio State cannot take the bait if Notre Dame is trying to bait Ohio State into just running inside zone or stretch run, and it's going to go for nothing. I think the Buckeyes get it done. Notre Dame is a very good team. I'm not overlooking them at all. I just think this is the roster that we looked at in the offseason and said this is the best team in the country, and we're finally seeing it play out now. And if they do get it done, if Ohio State wins this thing, this 4-game stretch that they went on, we're going to look back years from now and say that was a hell of a run.